everyone, and welcome to the Jeff Bullis Show. Today I have with me Link Brown. Now, Link is dialing in from Europe in Switzerland. And just a little bit about Link before we have a chat and just find out his very interesting story. Link has spent the last 24 years helping multiple companies scale their revenue 2x to 5x in the American market. They came from Europe and North America and in very diverse industries. They included industrial, biotech, and so on. He was a partner at G.E.T Global, which is a strategic consulting and services agency based in Switzerland. He grew up in very humble beginnings in America. He realized success came when he leaned into his uniqueness, used all his successes and failures to fuel and stay true to grounded principles for success. His work has led to delivering products and services to 80 plus countries. He has led global commercial teams of 60 plus people and traveled to 43 countries. Nothing like travel to give you a good education and learn about people and life. Link is fluent in English, French, and Spanish, which means he talks 2 more languages than I do, because I'm still struggling with English. So he's now based in Geneva, Switzerland. And Link, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Really appreciate it. Very happy to be here. I've been following some of your work. So really looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, I've been intrigued by your story. And one of the ones I read was, because one of the things you help people to grow their businesses is using what you call the Get Scale framework. Now, there's a story behind how you developed this. And so let's have a quick chat about this Get Scale framework came out of you being really crap at baseball and then got really, really good. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it's a very American story, right? So even if people don't know much about baseball, you'll understand that when you play baseball, you probably need to hit the ball to actually be successful in baseball. So that's everyone should know. So I'll give you the short story. Again, I was born in Cincinnati, Ohio. Played sports growing up. Actually played American football growing up, but never had really any particular hand-eye coordination. And I also tried to play baseball. So from about 8 years old to 14, I played every year. I was really fast, but I couldn't hit the ball. So I had 0 hits for the first 6 years of my baseball career. They just had to keep me on the team because that's how it was. So my parents had actually gotten divorced when I was 10 years old. Or my dad actually abandoned our family, I should say, actually, when I was 10 years old. So we went from middle class to like poverty. And I mean, no electricity sometimes, had to sleep on the floor for 6 years of my life. Like it was for US poverty. But there was a coach, his name is Coach Chambers. And the first year I tried to play for my high school team, I just was playing around. I wasn't really serious and chose not to show up to some games because I wasn't going to play anyway. I wasn't any good. And he kicked me off the team. So I cried like a baby when he did, because he was like that father figure I'd been looking for. And after about a week of crying, I finally decided, my mom had always told me, did you do your best? And I realized I hadn't. So what I did is, again, I had no money. At least I thought all of the best kids in our city. There's 1 million people in the city, so all the best kids in the city always had the best equipment and went to all these training camps. And I didn't have any money to do that. So I said, okay, well, what do I have? So I'm actually dyslexic too. So this is always interesting. So what I did is I just said, okay, what do you need to do? I need to hit the ball. I need to see the ball and hit the ball. That's kind of the basics. So I took a broomstick, an old broomstick, cut it down to the size of a baseball bat. Every week, I would take a roll of masking tape and I would wrap it around the bat just to get more weight and to make it thicker. And then I would have my friends pitch to me with tennis balls, which are fluorescent, that I could actually see. And actually, when they were throwing to me originally, I still couldn't hit it. So I had to have them throw it to me from the side so I actually figure out how to hit it. Well, longer story, a little bit shorter. That next year, in 1 year, I was 3rd on the team. I hit 317. So almost 32% of the time I got on base. And the year following, I hit 391, 39.1% of the time I got a hit. And I was an all-city baseball player. I ended up playing in college as well. But what that did is that kind of taught me this whole get scale framework. So it's about being grounded, having this big vision, knowing what you really want, but using what you have around you to help you move. It's about being efficient, simple, and agile in the way that you work, and then targeting in on the way that you work, because there's usually one or two things that you have to do in order to grow. And I've just used that framework throughout the rest of my life. So, like I said, started with baseball, and I just use that energy in every part of my life just to start moving forward.
Okay, let's quickly sum up. You mentioned it just then, but let's sum it up, distill the GET scale framework. What G means, what E means, and what T means, and just a quick summary of the GET scale framework.
Right. So GET scale is grounded, and efficient, and targeted. Grounded is the idea of having a big vision of what you have and what you want. You know, you want to 10x your business, you want to grow exponentially. But the reality is, in order to get to 10, you have to, right? So it's taking a very stepwise approach, using what you have around you to help you move to that next level. E is efficiency, right? So it's for me, efficiency is about simplicity. And simplicity is really allows you to execute well and be very agile in your approach, because the thing usually doesn't work. You have to figure out how to make things work. So you have to keep simplifying until you get to the source of what you really need to. So it's about being efficient. And then again, there's only one or two things, just like the Pareto principle. 20% of the items are going to give you 80% of the results. So there's only one or two things you really need to fix. And if you target those and you focus on them, everything else really starts to fall into place to get you to that next level.
Right.
So that's the framework.
Okay. So you became a star in the baseball team by being able to hit the ball when you weren't able to hit it, which is pretty amazing. You developed your own framework, which is very, very cool. And then you started to apply it to other parts, such as business. So you went and did your degree at college, and you did it was a chemical engineering degree, I believe.
Correct. Yeah.
So, and then you went and joined the corporate world. So when did you start to apply the GET scale framework, and when was your first major success? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I went to Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So it's a lot of things, but one of them is an engineering school. Got a degree in chemical engineering. Afterwards, I started working for a company called National Starch and Chemical, which got bought out by Henkel. But the first 2 years of my career, like no one in my family was a corporate person, like had any real business experience. So I first got in, and again, I tried to do things like everyone else. And it really wasn't working for me. I was getting very average results. I mean, I was getting paid, but I just feel like I was existing. I was showing up to work every day. And it actually really frustrated me. But then they teamed me up with a guy named Scott Carpenter, who was a salesperson, who we worked in teams. I was a technical guy, he was a sales guy. And we had our territory, and he was really ambitious, and it just kind of relit this fire inside of me. And he was also a guy who had worked, he was a lifter who became a salesperson, right? And so like I really identified with his story, and it just kind of re-engaged this whole idea with me, like, yes, we can be ambitious, we can go from there. So what we did over the next couple of years, so developed 10 products that had over 100,000 sales, which is 3 times more than anything else. We outpaced the growth of the group by like 400% in business in our territory. And it just, I realized that, you know, even as a tech guy, I could really use that kind of framework to help us really start to grow. And then I knew I could also do it myself moving into sales.
Right. So basically, the inspiration was that as a team, you realised that the salesperson got paid a lot more than the tech guy.
As I tell people, we doubled the business, and Scott made six figures, and I got a dinner in New York with my wife at the time, and a little certificate that said I did a good job. And I said, this is not for me. So I was like, I think I can do this on my own. So I took the first sales job I could possibly get. Actually took a pay cut just to do it. I said, I'll succeed. I'll start. I'll use the framework. I'll start with where I'm at, and I'll make it work.
Almost like you get a T-shirt that says the salesman made all the money. I got the T-shirt. I got this.
Or even worse, at least you can wear the T-shirt. I literally got a piece of paper that said "Good job." I was like, I could burn this.
Okay, so you're inspired now. You've had your ambition fires stoked.
Yeah.
So what was the next move after that?
So again, took the first sales job I could get. I went to a place called 𝓬𝓲 International. So if you know the little sticky piece of glue that's behind a credit card or something when it comes in the mail, we used to make that. And I would sell that through distribution decently well. And then moved into capital equipment sales. And also started my own consultancy at the time, where I was just helping companies on the side. Just every once in a while, I would pick up a project here or there. But then at my first capital equipment job, then again started using that. I came in, we had no marketing budget. They were a California company. I was on the East Coast, and just kind of worlds apart. And the whole way we were working we weren't growing. It was very stagnant. And just came in and just started, okay, what do I have? Using what I have around me. I know I want to grow. I know I want to double the business. I don't want to be like everybody else. I don't want to sit here and complain about the boss makes this and I don't. No, I want to win. So it was just started to develop my system and say, what do I have around me? Let's start using it. And that's what I just did. And then also just learning to outwork people, like doing things that people weren't willing to do, right? Like, and I think that's a lot of times we try to make things more complicated, but it's really always about getting back to basics, always keeping things simple. And if you just do the basic things well, you win, right? It's people when you try to make it more complicated, or you spend time worrying about something you can't control, that's when you slow yourself down.
Yep.
And so I find that a lot of times now I'm helping declutter people's minds and start to realize what they actually have in front of them instead of worrying about what they don't have.
Cool. So you essentially had something on the side, a side hustle going while you're working in your day job.
Mm-hmm.
When did you make that leap to leave the day job and its security?
Literally a year ago. Because I always liked having something on the side. Now, I think this is actually just poverty mentality, to be perfectly honest with you, of thinking that someone else is going to control, it's like that the job is security, right? And again, you can work your way into being necessary in whatever job you do, but but the thing is like I had always had this idea. I knew I had big ambitions, but I just said, it's almost this idea, I don't ever want to be poor again. Again, I slept on a cot for 6 years, like a piece of foam for 6 years. Like one winter, I had no winter coat. And I had this like limiting belief in my mind that I don't ever want to be poor. And so I had a good job of making a few $100,000 a year. And it's like, I didn't want to let the company have full control over me. But at the same time, if I lost it, I didn't know if anybody would ever hire me again, or if I could actually, was it actually a fluke, or was I actually good?
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, literally a year ago, just out of circumstances, knowing that like okay, I'm in Switzerland, I'm here, and I think I have a unique talent of helping. And when I started to look back at my career of just saying, really always taken foreign brands and help them succeed. That's all what I've always done. So why don't I just do it for myself? I have the ability, go for it.
Right. So that's a very brave step you made. And obviously, and I get that feeling of going, well, I've had a couple of wins. Are they just lucky strikes?
Yeah,
Right. You stepped
yeah.
up the plate and you got a couple of lucky strikes. So so you've made the leap, you're out there and you're helping people grow, and you're getting some success stories. Can you tell us a little bit about the number one? We can maybe start with a success story, or maybe we can start with, without giving names away, but up to you. But where do you start with a client? And you've got different types of clients that are sort of like ready to launch, have the product, know what they're doing, but need some focus, and you bring your get scale framework to the table and take them through that. In other words, get grounded, get efficient and simple, and get very targeted. In other words, just keeping the whole thing I love the rule of threes anyway. So you've got an acronym that's about three things, which is great, or three principles. So when you engage a client, and this is important, I think, for other people too, that may be wanting to do a side hustle or want to leap out, they might be, people with expertise, and you had expertise. In other words, you're essentially a coach, in one sense, with a lot of knowledge in your head, a lot of passion in your heart. So what's the process you take your clients through? Can you take us quickly through that as a bit of a thumbnail sketch?
Sure. So again, there's three types of clients. The client is either entering the US market, like they've already decided that they need to go into the US market and they're just starting.
Yep.
They are already in the US, but I would call them on the frustrated side. They've gotten some traction, but it's kind of leveled out over the years. Or they have great product market fit and they now want to optimize for scale. My favorite is probably the second one, who's come in, has had some success, but then frustrated and flat. And we'll call it flatline or stagnated for a while. So really the first process is understanding the customer's, my prospect vision. Like, what do they really want? What do they want to achieve? And I think it's really having that conversation. It's like doing any sales. It's like listening to understand what they want. And actually, the more you let them talk, the more you realize some of the limiting beliefs that they have about themselves already, right? So just taking that time to say, what does success look like in America for you? And then I take them through where are they currently at. It's the goal, it's where they are, and then it's the gap. I take you, where are you at right now? What have you done? And then we try to take them through, like, get them a quick wins to allow them to see that you really didn't have to reinvent anything. You just have to see it differently. If you could see it differently and you have to stop doing a few things, might have to change some others, and then you have to start consistent habits, like that's going to help you get some very quick and make the move. So it's kind of, I take them through that. I just listen a lot to understand what they want. I then listen again to understand what they've currently been doing, what successes and failures and what resources they have. And then just try to get them a quick win to help them move forward, to hit that, to take the next leap.
Right. Okay. And when is your job done with them?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess the technical answer is when the contract ends. I think the way I work is that I always have phases, and I put, they're hiring me for one specific thing. Maybe it's just to get started and I'm going to move them on. Maybe it's to keep working with them and continuously start moving them, through the years. But my first few clients have been ones that are I'm both helping them start and also helping them also kind of working with them and continuing. So I don't really say there's a definite end. I can also say though that the way I also love to work is my door stays open. Right. So if you're working with me over the years, like I have no problem helping people out or listening. So the contract might end, but the door will stay open in terms of just friends and stay connected.
Right. So can you share any success stories you've had in the last, whether it was during your side hustle days or your last 12 months?
Yeah. So helping. Yeah, so helping. I'll give you a very easy one. So helping a SaaS company who was doing lead generation. Again, I won't give the name to be. So SaaS company was doing lead generation in the kind of in the climate space, and was helping them evolve their lead generation. They basically weren't getting any traction whatsoever. They were very. I would. They had they had a system in place for getting new leads, but they had no real offer and no real framework. So what we did is the first thing is like we reworked their offer so that it was actually something that wasn't just in one person's head, but that anyone could actually present and connect with. So that's the first thing, because when you're generating leads, it's not just am I getting names and emails. It's actually you have to be able to work them through the sales funnel, and so you have to know how to do that. So we reworked the offer so that the offer made sense, the offer was relevant to their target clients, and go from there. And then something very simple is we just gave them a follow-up sequence for their lead gen. Their lead gen was basically being done by one person, one contact. If the person didn't connect, they didn't know what to do. He said that doesn't work. Well, in lead gen, if let's say you're using LinkedIn, you need to know what to do if the person connects, if they reply, if they don't reply, if they're not interested. You need to have all these sequences like already set up. And so just in our first 6 weeks, we were able to increase their leads that they got qualified to meetings by 545%, just in 6 weeks of just giving them an offer that worked, that people could connect to, and then making a follow-up sequence that people could actually follow, and that they were using virtual assistants that they could actually follow and drive and follow up with, and then just a weekly check-in, and it just made things much simpler. Something that simple really helped drive their leads forward. Previous days, I have.
What results did you get with that in terms of increasing leads, increasing sales? What sort of numbers did you achieve?
Yeah, so I stayed out the sales side, but on the lead side, again, 545% increase in leads themselves. So I think I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but yeah, but percentage 5 times more leads than what they were getting previously, and actual meetings. So they now had a full schedule of meetings to go and follow up with. So those are the kind of results we did. Had another company that I was actually an employee for where we were working. Okay, selling in the US, selling very complicated capital equipment to universities and government officials, which is always great because they never have money, or it always takes forever to get the money. And it was very complex or very high-end equipment. But sometimes we were presenting things like it was high-end. So basically, lead gen system, changed it up. And actually what I did is change up the system to do something very simple, just focused on what was looked at the one thing that they needed to do, which was just like a client couldn't run certain types of tests, or a prospect couldn't. We knew they couldn't. And so we would start with asking that question. So we started by actually selling them services first instead of the equipment. So we said, because the services, and then once we were able to get them hooked on services, we say, okay, you're now going to pay a few thousand for these services. You're a natural client to now buy an instrument. So I've driven my lead gen cost, they become nothing, because I'm able to drive it to zero, because I'm able to get actual service revenue first and then pull that in. And I think so in our service revenue, we increased 360% service revenue, and instrument sales that came from those service clients. It was 38% increase in instrument sales just from those clients. So lots of different ways that will work with customers. So just a couple of success stories.
Fantastic. As they're great success stories. Now, what people are always interested out of this starting business or an entrepreneur is, and I'm intrigued by your answer to this, is that and it's quite relevant, it's how do you generate leads?
Well, that's a very good question. I typically, I use LinkedIn for the most part, but I have a process that I use, a framework that I use when I'm prospecting. So I have a team set up who uses LinkedIn to connect to new people. And we have a follow-up sequence, right? It's kind of, it's normal. But then what we do is we actually, I say that everyone is either a prospect, a referral, or a friend, right? So when I get someone, I'm targeting someone, first, obviously I'm looking if we can do business together. Maybe we can. And then I'm looking for a referral to go to something to find if someone else may be interested. And either way, I want someone who does something for you. So I want to be a person who does something for them. So I offer that. I offer, hey, what do you need? How can I help you? And I've built a lot of relationships over the years by just being a friend to someone, right? And so and it can always be simple things. It can even just be a quick introduction email. It can be, oh, contact this person. It can be very simple, and it doesn't take any time out of your day, but you'd be surprised how many of those leads actually come back to you. The second thing I'll just say is that, so I use my framework. So you're either a prospect, a referral, or a friend. But the second thing I do is I just have multiple touches, multiple ways of contacting people. I'm doing a lot of LinkedIn Lives right now. I think my best method, like I told you before, I'm dyslexic. So for me to just do a newsletter and read all the time, like I don't have the, I don't want to do that, right? It's not the way I want to work, right? So I do a lot of video and live one-on-ones. I work much better. So I just chose one area where I work. So I do LinkedIn Lives and then turn them into meetings as well. And that's been pretty successful as well.
Right, cool. Yeah, it's lead generation is quite often something people are afraid of. You say, okay, I'm going to start a business, but don't know how to get leads. So that's why I want to ask you, number one, you help people get leads. Number two, you have your own system for doing that, which is fantastic. Okay, so the other question, because the area you're in, which is sort of consulting, where in some instance, I know you told me that you want to avoid doing it, which is trading time for money, because coaches essentially could be an hourly rate. I'm going to be charging, X dollars per hour. So how do you scale you? You mentioned the team that helps you generate leads, but the challenge in any coaching, consulting, is scaling.
Yes.
Thoughts on that, and how are you approaching it? You're only a year in, but what are your thoughts on that?
So okay, so I have a couple of ways that I'm working through that. So it's a really good question. So the first thing is to be very selective with the people that I'm working with in terms of one-on-one, right? But then there's also, you have to be able to do something in groups. So I have a book coming out in the next maybe 6 weeks called Get Scale. So even when you think it's impossible, it's the full title. So I'll sell a book. But what I really want to do, that's just an opener. what we really want to do is those people that I can help with different parts of their business is I'm also creating a course to be able to, for most people who want to grow in the US market, to be able to work around that. So that's going to be my second method piece or pillar, in order to help companies help companies on that journey, to do so through a book, but also through a course, and then being very selective about the ones that I work with. So, and then also just building a team. So I have consultants that I work with right now, who I will partner with, but I'm actually, again, want to build the framework even more, and then start hiring people, hire other consultants and service providers who are speaking German. I speak French, but those who speak German or speak another language, in order to facilitate more work with people in other countries.
Yeah, because the challenge in Europe is that there is there's a variety of languages.
Yes. Yes.
Even though the market size is large, I think it's around about 400 million or so. And Americans have got about the same, but they all speak English, or American. Whereas you've got French, Spanish, Italian, okay, and the list Slovenian, Hungarian, and the list goes on. So it's so for you, but you're taking people to, I suppose the other thing too is that English has become, and still is at this stage, the business language of the world, effectively.
Right.
And a lot of Europeans are taught English at school so they can actually then basically be involved in English speaking, at business especially, and also at university.
Yeah. Well, what I find is, so first of all, just telling people, so when I do a live, I'll actually do responses in French. I usually don't do them in Spanish because my Spanish is good but not great, but I'm surely fluent in French. So I will do question and answer in French if it's needed. But to your point is that there's a lot, like, it's not just different languages, it's actually different cultures. Like even the French speaking Swiss culture is completely different than France. They're not even close to the same. They're light years apart. Obviously, French and German, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese are all different. But for me, I have the benefit that if a company wants to drive business in the US, they probably speak English. Yep. Right. So it's kind of a prerequisite. So I do have that benefit. But I think the large part, particularly working with European companies, is the culture. And it's understanding their culture, which is why I want to be based in Europe and not in the US. Yep. Understanding their culture, really diving into it, and then help them bridge that gap between what their understanding of how business works and really the US business culture.
Cool. I'm going to ask you a left field question here. What brings...
Go ahead.
The question is, what brings you joy?
Oh, yeah. Okay, great question. So I have 6 things. I have 6 things that I try to revolve my life around. So family. I have 3 kids, 27, 16, and 8 months. So quite a gap. And a granddaughter too, by the way, who's 10 years old. So my family, mentoring, leadership development. I love people love dealing with leaders and helping people do that. I call it intercultural development. So I love work between cultures, business strategy. And lastly, as I will say, it's finding simplicity in complexity. So anytime I'm doing anything like that, whether it's through a personal conversation, whether it's through business, whether it's in my music, like, because I make music as well. So like everything, like I love taking those 6 things and just putting them together. And so those bring me joy.
That's awesome. I think I'm going to ask this question a lot more because I don't think we ask this question enough.
Yeah. Yeah. If I could give you, I could tell you, I went through there was a time 4 years ago, I gotten separated, was getting divorced. And I was stuck here in Switzerland. And I just said, I was in my bed every day, like just canceling all my morning meetings and just saying like, I don't want to deal with life. Like everybody, and my life was literally feeling like I felt like I was depressed. And I say I felt that way. There are some people who go through that. But one day I'm sitting in my bed and it's 10 o'clock in the morning. I canceled all my meetings. And one of my mentees from the US, she texts me and she says, Link, I need your help. And I jumped up immediately. And I was just like, I spent the next hour and I was helping her out. And like she had this business question and I was helping her through it. And I felt so excited. And I remember right afterwards, and I said, wait, I'm not depressed anymore. And it made me realize you need to reorient your life. You need to reorient your life around the things that you really love. And don't compromise on that. And so, again, some people go through a real depression and that happens. But for me, I just realized it was a lack of priorities. It was a lack of focus on what brings me joy and what my mission is in the world that really was making me feel like I was being pressed upon. So, but thanks for letting me share that.
Thank you very much for sharing that. It's very, very important. I think a lot of people ask themselves the question, what brings them joy? And I have recently a friend, and she said to me, I couldn't tell you. And that was, so I think we need to ask this question as friends, and also in business.
What brings you joy?
What brings me joy is I love my reading. I give myself permission to read a lot. I love my writing. I love being out on a bike in nature. I love silence. So there's a matrix of things that bring me joy. And I choose to do them.
I love that.
I think the thing is, in a lot of places, we accept the templates of our parents and friends and society. And we don't choose bliss or happiness. We choose the habits and lives of others. So, and that's a very dangerous place to live.
Yeah. Yes. Agreed. And I would say it's funny because I've been making these connections between our personal lives and like kind of how small business works. Because I said, even as a small business, like you have something unique about you. You have particularly in America, where you can differentiate yourself just in service or just in one particular aspect. But small businesses, a lot, they will think that they need to be like the big player in order to win. And I go, no, you actually don't do that. Like, it's better to have that, like, it's in that, just like in the personal realm, like where we have to find what brings us joy and what, like, our sweet spot. I think it's the same for small business as well. It's like, find that one thing, find what it is where that brings you joy, that you're good at, and stop putting the definition of success based on what you see on the news or Silicon Valley or whatever, Shark Tank or whatever you see. Like, realize like that you get to choose the path, your own, like what success looks like. You choose your path. It's not for somebody else to do.
There's a great story shared about the Knights Templar in the Grail, and all the 12 knights are sent out on their mission to find the Grail and their lives, and all of them went into the forest where there was no path. And because if they'd chosen a path, that path has already been trodden by someone else. So our mission in life is to be brave enough to live your own life, not someone else's, and strike out on your own and create your own path.
Into that.
So any last tips? You're from life and business, you're a year in. What are some tips for entrepreneurs that are either started or want to start? What's some tips that you'd like to share that you think are really important, that have made a difference to you? You've already shared some, but what's just 1, 2, 3, but whatever, just one's a good place to play.
Okay, I will say, I think I'm going to get 3. The first is to realize that a lot of us suffer from imposter syndrome. And I always say that imposter syndrome, like in order for you to have imposter syndrome, you had to have actually done something. Mm-hmm. And so remember that you actually did something already, right? And so you don't look at what you're not, look at who you are. The second thing I'll say is to build on who you are, because in order, like everything that you need to succeed to the next level is already inside of you or around you, right? Like you've already been built to a certain level to now give you the tools that you need to start moving to the next one. You're not going to get, to your final destination with just with what you have. You're going to have to grow and change, and that's okay. But you have enough right now in order to do that. And then the last part is, I would say, is take a look back with gratitude and appreciation, because I think when you look back with appreciation, not with regret, you actually start to realize how far you've come, and then you can actually use that to start turning around to say, okay, if I've done this, if I've done those things, I can reach the future. I'm a Christian personally, so I like to use stories of the Bible. So I'll use one briefly, but everyone knows David and Goliath. I said the only reason why David ever knew that he was supposed to that he could kill Goliath is because he had confidence that he had already killed the bear and the lion in the past. Right? He was only using his strength from before to realize what he could do in the future. And so I think that's the same for us too. Like we have to use the strength that we have in the past in order to help us go to the next thing that we're after. And we shouldn't be afraid of that. We should just go in with confidence, knowing that we can go further and faster.
Right. Thank you, Link, for sharing your stories about life as well as business. And if people want to grow their business, especially those that are wanting to reach the American market or grow their American market leads and sales, how can they contact you in the simplest way?
Okay, the simplest way is you can just go to LinkedIn and send me a connection request. So all of my social media is 𝓬_LINK_BROWN or the Link Brown. So 𝓬𝓬𝓪𝓻𝓷.com. But my handle for LinkedIn is the same. It's the Link Brown. If you go to LinkedIn, you can find me there, or 𝓬𝓬𝓪𝓻𝓷.com.
Thanks, Link. Thanks, Link. It's been fantastic, and I've really enjoyed it. And this has been a joy having this conversation. And
Absolutely.
That's the thing that brings me joy, is these real conversations which we've had. Thank you very much for being real.
I really appreciate you, and thank you for having me on your podcast. All the best success, and I'm sure we're going to be staying in touch.
Thanks, Link. It's been an absolute pleasure.